This week on the Baseline Podcast, Josh and I are back, and we are talking about the NCAA tournament. We're talking about the Final Four coming up, who we think is going to win each game, and who's going to win it all. And then we talk about the Major League Baseball season, opening day, the surprises, the things that have shocked us. We talk about the Reds and the Guardians, and we finish up by talking about the NFL and Diggs getting traded from the Bills to the Texans. What does this mean for the Texans, and what is happening to the Bills? All that and so much more coming up on the Baseline Podcast. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Baseline Podcast. I'm Ben, that's Josh, and we are back. But you know what? It's a birthday week. Josh Burris is, how old are you, Josh? How old has Josh been around the moon?
I am 28 now, going on year 29.
Wow. How do you feel? How was your birthday day last weekend? How did that all go? What'd you do? Explain how Josh Burris celebrates his birthday.
Yeah, so I had to work on my actual
Oh,
birthday,
so
but
sad.
the weekend before that, me and some friends got together. We went to this place in town. It's called Clubhouse 3. It's like a sports bar and hangout place, but they got like the giant Jenga and some
Oh
golf
yeah.
simulators and other arcade style games that we were playing. But the Elite Eight was also going on that day, so we were watching those games. And let's see, got um yeah, that was pretty much everything. Exactly how I would have wanted to do it, watch sports, hang out with my friends, and
That's a
play some
Josh.
games.
If you
So
don't know Josh personally, that is like the most Josh-esque type of way to celebrate a birthday. Like just let me watch sports, hang out with a few friends, and just leave me alone. Like that's I feel like that's a Josh birthday right there.
it's right up there, yeah. On my actual birthday, let's see, I got new tags for my car since the old ones expired. I got
Oh,
a
what a way
workout
to
in.
celebrate your birthday.
Yeah, going to the BMV for that. I could have done it before, but I didn't
You just wanted to
realize that
celebrate on your
was
birthday. You wanted to celebrate on your birthday.
yeah, had to go and do something eventful. Worked out, and then worked. And then today, my family and I are actually getting dinner after we record here. So that'll be
Nice.
like the cap.
The cap,
Yeah,
man. And then you have the bussin' with the boys hat, by the way. Shout out to the bussin' with the
I
boys.
did. They ran a sale over the weekend for $16 hats. So I was like, it's my birthday, I'll splurge.
$16 hats. I was telling Josh before we recorded. I remember when it was $2 hats you could pick up at like Dunham's or Walmart and get a hat, and now it's
They're all
just,
routinely
just
30 bucks
ridiculous.
anymore.
It's just
And the
sad.
new
It
era
truly
ones are
is.
50 pretty much.
Drives me nuts. But anyways, like Josh said, he watched the Elite Eight. I'm sure everyone that's listening has watched the Elite Eight or at least kept up with the scores. So, Josh, how do you feel like this Elite Eight went? And then we'll talk about the preview for the Final Four and give you listeners our who we think is going to win it all. So let me hear your thoughts, Josh, on the games here of the Elite Eight.
Yeah, let's see. So kicking off Saturday, we had the UConn Illinois
Which
matchup,
wasn't even a
and
game.
but it did look like it was going to be in the
Yeah, that's
first
true.
half.
Yeah,
Let me remind you that the score at halftime was 28-23 UConn. They looked a
yeah,
little shaky at times, but then as the game's going on in the second half, I'm checking the score every now and then. I'm seeing UConn slowly pull away, and I'm like, okay, they're
yeah,
doing UConn things now. And then I come to find out at the end of the game, UConn goes on a 30 to nothing run in that second half that ultimately led them to pulling away. Illinois was missing easy shots. They at one point showed 21 missed layups, and I was just like, you got to be kidding me, dude. Like it was impressive that Illinois to me made it this far. I didn't think they would,
yeah, so,
but
yeah.
still to have it end like that, that sucks for them, and it just goes to show that UConn like you can't just go and play your worst game against them.
Well,
They will embarrass you just as they embarrassed their opponents in the Sweet 16, San Diego State 82-52. They come out here. This is Illinois. This is a 3 seed that they beat by nearly 30 points.
yeah, and it is funny because I don't know if you've seen the video of like the Illinois head coach like cracking open a Coca-Cola, and he's just like, "Well, that sucked." Like he's just kind of
Well,
like,
that sucked. Yep.
"Yeah, well, I don't know what else to say." Um, but yeah, I mean, this UConn is on another level. Like here's the teams in the NCAA tournament. Here's UConn. Like there's not a team right now left, and even before there was teams left Like even Purdue, I don't think Purdue's up there. Like I think Purdue's good, but I don't think they're at that level. And the fact that they could be up 5 and then all of a sudden you're up 30, it's just it's scary to think that this team really, if you look at their roster, they're not like stud dudes coming out of high school. Some of them were, but if you really look at it, they've developed players, and if you want to go get developed, I mean, UConn has proven that's the place you go and get developed.
Oh yeah. Um, any other thoughts on that game?
What'd you say?
Any other thoughts on that game?
I guess my biggest thing with the Big Ten is like I hate seeing the Big Ten like this every year. Like I feel like I mean obviously Purdue's in the Final Four, but it's just like I just want I want the Big Ten to show up and like dominate. Like I think we can in basketball, but it's just I don't know. I just get disappointed by the Big Ten every year. It seems like it's always Big Ten teams that just struggle throughout the tournament, and it'd be nice to have a good chance every once in a while.
Yeah, I'd say that the fact that they got two teams in the Elite Eight
Yeah,
was
I
a
mean it's
little
good.
more than
Yeah,
what I was expecting. But when you
yeah,
think about the Big Ten, at least when we were growing up, how Michigan State was always a force and
yep,
Ohio State would have their seasons and Michigan
yeah.
would have their seasons. Mentioned Purdue, Indiana hasn't even been relevant in college
No,
basketball for quite a while, and that's like a sleeping giant, I feel like, potentially over there. We are getting UCLA to come over
yeah,
next year.
yeah,
That could
that's
make
fun.
things
Yeah,
interesting.
I mean, like I said, like it's not that they can't compete. It's just I feel like the big time games, it just even like when Ohio State had a chance to win the national title back in '07, they just fell short. Like and you just want to see the Big Ten succeed, obviously, and it'd be really nice to see a team succeed at this level.
So game two on Saturday. This is who UConn will be playing. They'll be playing Alabama now after Alabama defeated Clemson 89 to 82.
Yeah,
This one was back and forth all
it
night
was.
too. And I
It
think
was.
what really made the difference was Mark Sears just all of a sudden heated
Oh,
up.
dude, he turned
Made
into a
six of
lightning
his
rod.
last seven, made 6 of his last 7 threes at the end, couldn't miss, ended the night with 23 points on 8 of 18 shooting overall. Uh, Pringle added 16. You got 19 from Stevenson off the bench. This is the country's #1 scoring offense. And credit to Clemson for basically keeping pace with them all night. Just at the end, Alabama made, more shots than they did.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Clemson, I mean, they were veteran, right? They had a lot of older guys. I think what it showed is that Alabama's talent, right? I think Josh, we've talked about this before. Like, there's just certain games, whether it's football, whether it's baseball, not as much baseball, but football or basketball, where talent just takes over. And I think Alabama's talent slowly started, I think, to separate itself. Like you said, Sears just caught on fire, right? But at the same time, I felt like that game could have went either way. I think for most of that game, Clemson could have pulled it out. I mean, that would have been fascinating to see Clemson in the Final Four. No one saw coming. But again, Alabama proving that they're not a basketball, just a football school, which I think is also cool to see. And yeah, I'm just going to say it now. I don't see them beating UConn, but welcome to the Final Four and good night.
Yeah, we can actually talk about that matchup. So this is what I'm going to say about this UConn-Alabama matchup right now. That's going to be coming up. The couple days before, Alabama beat my North Carolina Tar Heels, sadly.
Yep.
Uh, when we were talking about previewing that game and why I thought Carolina was going to win, I had mentioned that Alabama is the highest scoring offense in the country, and North Carolina can't afford to have any kind of cold spell like they did against Michigan State or against NC State. And it wasn't necessarily a cold spell at any point. It was just overall they shot horribly. I think the end of the night shooting under 40%, and sadly, RJ Davis, the ACC Player of the Year, had to end his Tar Heel career with probably the worst game of his career, and that sucked to see. But even in the midst of that awful shooting performance, they still only lost by 2 points when right in that game. So
Yeah.
that being said, I think Alabama might have to actually work pretty hard in this one. If UConn can have a game where they don't even have to be at their best, they just have to be good, and Alabama's still going to be in like these situations where they can't pull away, that kind of scares me as a Bama fan a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, I look at this game, I gotta look at it the way you do, but also I think too, like UConn's proven that it does not matter how good you are, how big you are, like they will find a way to win. And look, as coaching, helping, be a part of the staff at Cedarville, there were games where you played a team and you just knew no matter what we do, they're going to have an answer, and no matter what we do, they're just always going to find a way to capitalize on our mistakes. And I think Alabama, and I think we've probably heard this 1,000 times. Like Alabama needs to play a perfect game, like a perfect game. Like they need to not turn the ball over. They need to take not like you were talking about North Carolina. They can't have a cold spell because I feel like if they get behind, yes, they can score a lot of points. But let's be honest, UConn knows how to control the pace. UConn knows how to slow the game down or speed it up or however it might be. To me, I think it comes down to can Alabama limit its own mistakes? If it limits its own mistakes, then it puts yourself in a position where, hey, we can compete with this team. But at the end of the day, I just don't see how Alabama can beat UConn on a head-to-head matchup, and I think UConn wins this. Dare I say almost 20 points, but I think UConn wins this by maybe like 18, maybe like a 78-60 game.
If they won it in typical UConn fashion, it would have to be around a 20-point win, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Let me point some other things out to you about UConn's win over Illinois. Did you know that Tristan Newton did not make a single field goal that game?
yeah. I did see that. Yeah, yeah,
Did you know that Stephon Castle only shot 1 of 6?
yeah. It's scary. It's very scary.
These are two starters, two of their best players coming out here that consistently score in double digits, and you go come and play 3 seed Illinois and
It's
don't
it's
even need your whole
it's
starting lineup to succeed. Yeah, and some of
it,
that did have to
it
do with the fact
reminds
that
me
Illinois shot so bad, but
it
still.
it reminds me of like in like eighth grade when you're playing a really bad team in eighth grade and like your starters or like maybe even a competitive game in varsity basketball and like your two best players aren't playing, but you guys are so deep, you're playing like 12 guys, right, in a game. And I think too, like Josh, I think when do we see deep teams in college basketball anymore? When was the last time you
Not
looked at
that.
how many times you look at a college basketball team and go, they're 9 deep, they're 10 deep? You never see teams do that. Even Ohio State or even Cedarville, like where we graduated from, they maybe play 7 dudes a game, maybe 8, but you
Yeah,
never see teams play 10 deep.
I think in large part that might have to do with the portal and just spreading out
Yeah.
talent, so there's not like the accumulation of talent year after year. I do want to point out too that while UConn has this experience on their team and is deep, Bama may not be able to match their depth, but they do have the experience. I don't want it to go unnoticed that they started 4 seniors in that game against Clemson
Yeah.
too, so they
Yeah.
got
Yeah.
the experience as well. Most of these guys were in the tournament a couple years ago when Alabama was it competing for a national championship?
No, because this is their first final. I believe this is their first
Oh,
final
this is
four,
their
though.
first Final Four. Yeah, this
So I
was
think they were
they
the
did
Elite
have a
Eight. They were Elite Eight run, I believe. They
yeah,
had Elite Eight run.
and they were like a pretty high seed
Yeah.
that one
Yeah.
year. That's right. Yeah, this is their first Final Four though. So I do think UConn's going to win this game. I think the depth and their talent is ultimately going to be the X factor here. But I think Alabama's been proving with the wins that they've had. Like they've beaten Clemson, they've beaten North Carolina. They've had to beat some good teams to get
Yeah.
here. It wouldn't shock me if UConn actually only beat them by single digits to this time. But again, crazy things are happening in March, and UConn could do UConn things like they have been.
Yeah. Agreed.
So Sunday slate, kicking it off with Purdue and Tennessee, a 1 versus 2 here. Uh, Zach Edey's been having a heck of a
He's
tournament, Ben.
he is the player of the tournament, whether they win it or not. Like
I think so too.
This guy is proven because I heard so much crap after last year. Like he's not an NBA player. He'll barely be a rotational big. He'll be a G League guy or a D League guy, right? I I have said since I've watched him, he doesn't move like a 7'3" guy. He moves like a 6'10", 6'9", 6'11" guy that's a bigger dude. And yeah, man, dude, Zach Edey is like you heard him after the game. Like he's ticked. Like
Yeah,
he's
he's
like
playing with a chip on his shoulder.
I want to prove to people that Purdue's not a team that's a laughing stock and that we can actually prove to win it all. And again, I've always doubted Purdue. We both have. Like we both have said like we don't see Purdue even getting close to the Final Four. But I think what they've done is they did what's smart. Why not give the ball to their best player? Like I hate teams in the college basketball that they go to the tournament and they like try to like change what they do. Like, dude, if you have a 7'3" monster in college basketball, it's different in the NBA, right? I don't think he'll dominate the NBA. I think he'll be like a, maybe a 6-5 guy, maybe 8-5 guy, that kind of thing. Maybe better. Maybe I'm wrong. But in college basketball, dude, you're 7'3". Give him the ball every stinking time down the court, every time. Feed off of him, and I think that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, let me read you some Zach Edey stat lines going into the Big Ten tournament. So against Michigan State in the quarterfinal, 29 and 12. Against Wisconsin in the semifinal, 28 and 11. In the tournament, first game, 30 and 21. Game two against Utah State, 23 and 14. Against Gonzaga, 27 and 14. And then against Tennessee, his biggest one, 40 points, 16 rebounds.
I mean,
It
he's
sounds crazy
amazing.
to say, 7'4", fifth-year senior, like having this much pressure and like criticism against him. But I mean, I think most of it has been valid. But credit to him for using it to fuel him and
And the
help
biggest thing
get
they
his
said
team
is
this point.
he said that a lot of people say, well, he's flat footed, he's not really athletic, but this year he's proven, man, he can move, and he can stretch a team if he needs to. Not like a stretch 3-point shooter, but hey, if I need to hit a jumper, I'll hit a little bunny jumper. But again, I is he Victor Wembanyama? No, he's nowhere close. But I'm sorry, I don't. What team do you want to? Would you like to guard him? I wouldn't want to guard him. I mean, he's a
Me neither.
freak.
No.
So
Yeah. I've been critical of Purdue saying all you gotta do is get Edey in foul trouble and then you basically got it because they don't really have that solid second, third guy that could take over a game for you. But nobody's been able to get him in foul trouble, Ben.
no. And he's smart. He's smart. He knows how to play defense. He's not going to risk it.
Right. Yeah. Victor Wembanyama is about 100 pounds lighter, but the same height. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, that's not, and also Wemby almost had a quadruple double. So that just
Yeah.
shows you the difference.
And not to overlook Tennessee here. They were my Final Four pick. They didn't make it, but Dalton Connect put on a heck of a show
Yeah,
too.
he
So it
did
was
too.
a
Yeah.
nice back and forth. 37 points from him, shooting 6 of 12 from three. Him and Edey going back and forth. That was a heck of a game to watch. And Purdue will be met by the NC State
Dude,
Wolfpack.
did I not say at the beginning of the tournament, I said, do not be surprised if NC State makes a run because of the momentum. And what have they done? They have the biggest momentum. And I've said it, that part of the bracket was the part of the bracket. If they can get through a few games, it looked a little bit easier to get on the way through.
I let you talk me into not making them go. I had them penned in as Elite Eight. I thought that the momentum that they had in the ACC tournament could continue over, but then you were like, it was fun while it lasted. They'll get their one win, so it'll be worth it. But some of these teams that they're gonna have to face might just be too
Yeah, because
much.
I mean, I believe that their momentum could take them as
And
far
then
as
I
they
was
are
like,
now.
yeah, you're right. 5 wins in 5 days. That was fluky, but here they are. And this was one of the games that was like, okay, Duke. They had to beat Duke in the ACC tournament. That was one of those teams. Are they going to actually beat them again on the tournament floor? I don't think so. But here they are winning by 12 against one of the best teams in the conference.
And they have a
What
guy
else
who's
here?
they literally have a guy who's getting scouted by NFL GMs. No, not NBA. NFL GMs because he's 6'9", 290 pounds, and moves like a freaking bumblebee. Like he's soft on his feet and he's phenomenal. And I love watching him
DJ
play.
Burns with 29
He's
points in that game.
unreal.
Yeah. Yeah. So NC State's one of those that's like, compared to other teams in the past, I don't see NC State as like that darling that like George Mason was or some of those other
So
smaller schools that are
not like a
like,
Butler. So not like a Butler.
yeah, yeah. Like I was thinking more so like a few years ago, or not a few years ago, several years ago, it was I think we had a 7 seeded
Yeah, it was
UConn versus a
UConn.
9 seed Kentucky
Yeah,
in
I
the
think that's what it was.
championship.
Which is
Yeah,
weird, by the
Kevin
way.
Ollie was coaching UConn, Julius Randle was leading Kentucky, and it was like these are teams that most years we wouldn't be surprised if they made it. It was just that season they weren't so great,
Yeah,
and then just kind of like figured everything out. And NC State's kind of like that to me, being in the Power Five. But Jay Billis had a really good video pointing out what NC State has done has been one of the most amazing things, starting the ACC tournament off with a 7-14 record, and
yeah,
then you have that crazy bank shot go in game winner against Virginia to kick things off, and then you go and you beat Duke and you beat North Carolina to win the ACC and win 5 games in
yeah,
5 days, and that feat in itself is like truly amazing. Like what they had to do to get here, and now that they are here, it seems like they got everything figured out.
yeah. I mean, I think part of it too is that they're playing with like this. I don't know, like not even a chip on their shoulder. It's like they're playing carefree. Does that make sense? Like I feel like they're just playing like what's there to lose? Like we weren't even supposed to be here, and so why not go out and have some fun, right? It
Yeah.
reminds me of like pickup basketball. That's what it reminds me of. Like you're out there, you
And,
just want to play a little fun and have a little fun with that.
and those are some of the teams that are a little more scary to face because they're not gonna be like trying
Yeah,
hard
they
or
don't
like doing
care.
things that they normally
They're like, let's
don't do.
just have
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah, credit DJ Horn too. Been the guy that people have been highlighting. He's had to deal with some injuries, but he put up 20 points in that game. He's put up 19, 11, 16 in their other games to get here. So they've beaten Texas Tech, Oakland. That would have been Kentucky if Kentucky had just gotten things done
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
Marquette, the 2 seed, and then Duke, the 4 seed. So they're beating some good teams here to get to this point. And now they are going to face Purdue, obviously. And is this going to finally be the end here? Is Purdue going to make an exclamation point on their season and get to the national
See,
championship?
I've doubted NC State this whole time,
Well,
and so
to be fair, I've doubted Purdue and NC State this
yeah,
whole time, so I don't even think
I.
that I can really use that as a factor in my decision.
But then I don't want to be that guy that has a one versus one final, right? Because then it's just boring. No, I, I think this is where NC State stops, and I don't think it necessarily is against NC State. I just think that we have not seen Edey like we haven't seen a guy dominate this at this high a level. Um, at really like consistently, I think in a while, and I don't know how NC State stops him. I'll be honest with you. And even if they get in foul trouble, like Purdue's shown that they have guys who can at least contribute a little bit, and maintain that until they get them back in. But yeah, I'm gonna just say Purdue wins this like 77-70. I think it's gonna be kind of a close game, but I think Purdue will pull it out.
Yeah, I'm looking at NC State as more of like a 7 or 8 seed, just based on
Yeah,
what I've been seeing. But even still, Purdue is the one, and Zach Edey just being like that difference maker. DJ Horn, DJ Burns over on the NC State side have been great to their credit, but Edey is just like reaching like his full potential at this
yeah,
point. And it's just like I wouldn't want to get in this guy's way. And I think that's going to be enough to beat a NC State, beat
mhm,
a Tennessee, or
yeah.
it even could be interesting watching them compete against UConn if this is the national championship that we get. But at least just speaking on this game, I'm going with Purdue.
Yeah. And then because the finals will be happening before we record
Monday.
next,
Yeah.
so what do you think? What is you because we
If we
both
do have
picked
a Purdue
yeah, we
UConn
both
Natty.
picked UConn Purdue.
Yeah.
What do you think? What's gonna happen?
Purdue UConn Natty. Yeah. I think that this is a game that's going to be competitive. Uh, I th I think you look on one end, you got the depth at UConn, and then you got the obviously
Freak.
superstar power over at Purdue with only one guy though, to
Yeah.
to be fair. And UConn was my national championship pick from the start because I think they can beat you in multiple ways. They got many guys that can beat you, and it didn't matter who they were facing. I just filled out every single blank. I was like, I don't even care who the opponent is. UConn is winning it all. That's like
Yeah.
my draft day thing. Like take Vontae Mack, like take UConn to win it all. I don't care who the opponent is on the other side. But the heck of a job by Purdue to get to this point. They've more than proven me wrong, and I think a lot of other people wrong.
Yeah.
I know they're gunning for a national championship to be that second team to lose to a 16 seed the year before and then come back and win the Natty the next year. That'll
Yeah.
be a heck of a narrative if they go ahead and pull that off. But I think UConn, like I've been saying all year, is just going to be too much for any team to be able to overcome.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm going to stick with UConn. I chose them to win it all, and I think they're going to win this. Maybe not by a lot. I think Purdue might surprise some people, but at the end of the day, I think UConn wins this by 7 or 8, and I think it's going to be a repeat, which we haven't seen since Florida. So I
Yeah.
think it's kind of cool to see a repeat and maybe see a little bit a mini dynasty happening. But then you just look who's won the most women's and men's national titles in the last 25 years, and you realize it's UConn pretty much has all of them is pretty sad, but it is cool and exciting at the same time.
Yeah. The other thing about this too, up to this point, nobody's really had anybody that can match up on Zach Edey, but UConn does have Donovan Klingman, who is
Yeah,
7'2", 280 pounds.
yeah,
And Edey might not be able to get his 40 and 20 kind of game, but he still might be able to get like a 30 and 10.
yeah,
It's just going to not be as much as like what we've been seeing him put up. But
yeah,
even having somebody on UConn's side that can maybe contain and limit some of that performance over there could be like a deciding factor in this one as well.
Yeah. So with that, that's basketball talk. But now we're moving to the thing that started last week and is always exciting for Josh and I. It's the time of year that we breathe and we're excited about to see disappointment in our faces by the end of the year. But baseball season is here, Josh. Major League Baseball wow, pitched off, hit off, whatever you want to say, over
Heat
this
off.
past, 8 days or so ago. So, Josh, let us talk about Major League Baseball. Both the Guardians and Reds are both over 500 at the same time and are both doing very well. Even though somehow the Pittsburgh Pirates are ahead of the Reds in the standings, I have no idea how that's possible. But it is what it is. But as you look at the MLB over the first week we've seen so far, what have been some of your things about the Guardians specifically that you've been impressed with? I'll talk about the Reds, but you can talk about the Guardians. Anything you've been impressed with, and then after that, we'll talk about what have been some of the cool things we've seen over the past week.
Yeah. You'll hear me complain on this show all the time about how our offense doesn't lack hits, it lacks power, and it lacks runs
That
ultimately.
is true.
That's why in large part we always got to have a dominant pitching staff because if we don't allow less than 2, 3 runs a game, we're probably going to lose. But as it stands right now, Ben, in the American League, Cleveland is leading in runs scored with
Excuse me, what?
46.
Really? Wow.
They are a whopping 10 runs ahead of the next highest team, which is Baltimore, 36 runs scored this year.
I want to clarify. You said Indians. It's the Guardians, Josh.
Cleveland. Cleveland leads the American League in runs scored with 46, which is 10 ahead of second place Baltimore.
I
That is
definitely
something
didn't
I
know
did
that
not
there,
see coming. And sure, maybe it has something to do with the fact that we opened the season at Oakland,
which does
and
help. Which we will
it
talk about
does
Oakland
definitely
here
help.
in a few segments here. We'll talk about Oakland in a second.
Yeah,
But
we got some things to say about Oakland, but this is the thing about Oakland. So we win these games 8-0, 6-4, 12-3, and then we lost the last one 4-3, which is
which
freaking
is sad.
stupid. But usually, Cleveland struggles in April because we're
Yeah,
playing in Cleveland, colder weather. I think it takes hitters a little bit longer than pitchers typically, maybe as well to get going. But the fact that we played the worst team in the league to start the year, and we also were in
that did
Cali
help.
where it's warmer, definitely helped. But we're continuing the momentum into this Seattle series too. Let me go ahead and tell you the scores from the Seattle series so far. So we lost the first one 5-4, but then we got a 5-2 win and an 8-0 win, and currently we're up 3-0 on the Twins right now in the fourth, kicking off that series at Minnesota. So things that I've loved from this, that's number one, is the offense is actually coming alive, and our manager even in the A's game like was playing different batting orders and different starters. It was just like it didn't seem to matter who we played. We were gonna, rake and score runs there. And a couple individual guys to highlight here out of this. First, you got to look at Stephen Kwan, who's leading our team in batting average. He's been at the leadoff, hitting
Yep.
353. We still don't have the overall power really being displayed yet. We got 5 home runs in these games. Kwan has hit one, Jose's hit one, Josh Naylor, Bo Naylor, and Tyler Freeman have each gotten one. Uh, then as far as runs driven in goes, it's kind of been spread out. Jose's got 6 RBIs. Andres Jimenez has 6 RBIs. Josh Naylor's got 5 RBIs. And then the pitching's just continue to do what the pitching staff does always, and Shane Bieber especially. 2-0 right now in 12 innings pitched. I don't think he's allowed a single earned run yet. Yep, that's correct. And 20 Ks. The dude is looking lights out right now.
Yeah.
That's on my thoughts on Cleveland right now.
Yeah.
I don't know if this start is sustainable, but if they can continue to play ball like this, I mean, this is going to be one of the best teams in the American League, dare I say. That includes the New York Yankees, Baltimore Orioles, and the Houston Astros and Texas Rangers. Like we could be in that mix. The pitching I figured would be there. The hitting, I hope it can maintains this pace.
Mm, preach it. So good. Uh no, yeah, I mean the Guardians have been playing really well. Shall I go over the Reds and how they've been doing so far? Shall I
Go over the
touch on
Reds
it?
because I think you're going to have a lot
Yes.
of good things to say about
Yeah,
your boys
it's
too.
surprising that Josh and I can come on this show and like be happy to talk about our baseball teams. Usually it's just one of us just being so depressed that we don't really want to talk about it. But so the Reds started with the Nationals. Again, I agree with you. Playing a team that probably helps your season at the beginning. Now, it was at Cincinnati. If you didn't know, fun fact, tradition, the Reds are always at home on opening day. I don't know if you knew that, but every single year the Reds are at home for opening day. First game, we signed Frankie Montas. I don't know if I talked about this, but he had shoulder injury. If you don't know who he was, he had a really good like few first years in the league with like the A's and some other teams, and then he got hurt. He pitched like one game for the Yankees last year, and then the Reds signed him for like a $13 million deal for 1 year. He goes out opening day and throws. He throws six. Hold on, let me find it. Yeah, he throws six shutout innings, I believe it was. Let me find. Yeah, so he threw six shutout innings. Um, the bullpen, which I will talk about, is the one thing I'm worried about. But opening day, Nick Martini, I think that's his name. Is it Nick? Dude, the dude's 33 years old and he's just now started. So Nick Martini, he played a little bit last year for the Reds at the end of the year, but he had 2 home runs, 5 RBIs in the first game. He's the first guy since I believe it was Adam Dunn, was it? I think that hits 2 home runs on opening day. So pretty impressive. De La Cruz had a decent game that game. By the way, Spencer Steer is a guy who I will be talking about in a second because he is literally hitting the cover off the ball. And again, this team, this is by the way, without Noel Marte, who suspended 80 games, who I didn't talk about because I was so angry about it, who was supposed to be our third baseman, right? You're without him. Joey Votto's now not on the team anymore. You've lost, I believe it was Friedel. He's out for a few weeks. You have Nola Dolo. He's hurt. You have a couple guys banged up in the starting lineup that are not completely healthy. So a lot of things you're dealing with. That's what you do in the first game. Second game, right? Who is the best bullpen pitcher? Do you know who the best bullpen pitcher last year was on the Reds, Josh?
Was it Diaz?
It was Diaz, right? The Reds are up going into the ninth inning. And what happens? Diaz collapses, gives up 3 earned runs. I mean, they lose 7-6. This should be easily a win. They should be 2-0. They end up going ahead and sweeping. They could have swept the Nationals if they would have gotten that win because they end up winning against the Nationals again in the third game, where once again the bats for the Reds just come alive. Encarnacion hits a walk-off home run. Benson hit a 2-run homer to tie it in the ninth, and then Encarnacion Strand hits a home run to win the game. Then who they face but the lovely Phillies. I love how you get to face the Mariners and then the Reds just have to face the Phillies. But Reds win the first game, played really well. The pitching again. The one thing I will say this is the pitching's been very, very good. Starting pitching specifically. The bullpen is really bothering me because they spend a lot of money rebuilding this bullpen. Not a lot of money, but they've just invested in this, and it's been real shaky. Obviously, they Harper, who was like what 0 for 13, and then hits 3 bombs, including a grand slam against the Reds bullpen and starter, and that was really frustrating. But they cap it with winning the series against the Phillies yesterday, where Frankie Montas once again threw a phenomenal game. He's only given up 1 earned run in his first 2 starts. He's playing phenomenal, and now you have the next 3 games against the Mets, who are 0-5. But if it is the normal Reds, we'll probably lose all 3 games. But I'm really happy for the Reds right now. Again, it's no one impressive. Like if I look at the stats, if you would have told me that Nick Martini would be our leader in home runs and RBIs, I would have thought you're crazy. If you would have told me Spencer Steer is going to be hitting almost 440 in the first few games, I would have also thought you're crazy. But Spencer Steer has been a huge addition to what's going on. Will Benson has kind of claimed that center field spot, at least until Friedel gets back. Maybe they move him back to right field. I'm not sure what they'll do. But you have Fraley. Like, do you want to bench Fraley, who Fraley has been hitting the ball really well? Carcion Strand, Catalerio, that's been the down part, I guess, on the offensive side. Spencer Strand had Carcion Strand had a huge spring. But Candelario, I mean, we spent money on him. I'm kind of frustrated that, like, if this is what we're going to get production wise, why not just keep Joey Votto? Like, Obviously, not have Novell Marte, but Jonathan India is a DH. Never would have thought that Jonathan India would be a DH, but I guess here we are, 2025, right? 2024, I mean. And then, yeah, again, the bullpen has been rough, and that's the frustrating part. But other than that, man, I'm happy with where the Reds are at.
And even still, despite all that, the most unlikely team in the league is
Oh,
undefeated in first place in the AL
it's
Central, and that's the
it's
Detroit Tigers.
there's been so much of that weirdness happening, man. Like the Pirates are leading the NL Central. Like it's weird. Like I don't know how to describe it, to be honest with you.
You want to
Like
know something crazy? So Detroit, this is who they've started the season off with. They got to play, I believe it was the White Sox to start the year, who could contend with Oakland for the worst team in the league.
that is true.
And now they're playing the Mets this
Who
week,
are terrible.
who haven't won a game yet this season either.
It's just yeah.
Are the Tigers that good and everyone they're
No,
facing just can't beat
they're
them? Or
they're
are they
just
just
not
playing
that.
some of the
I don't.
worst ball
I don't
clubs in
think
the
they're that good.
country?
I don't think they're that good, but that's just me. But speaking of Oakland, before we get any farther, Josh, I do want to speak about Oakland. Would you like to break the news that was broken as we're recording this today on Thursday that was shared with us today about where they're moving?
Yeah, I think the move to Vegas has been inevitable. It's been talked about. They've showed stadium plans and talking
Yeah,
about how it's going to happen. And now it's official. It's going to be,
2028.
I think 2028 is the
Yeah,
year that it's going to be. But the part that I did not see coming was that from 2025 to 27, that 3 year stint while the stadium's getting built, they're going to move the team from Oakland to Sacramento and play at the stadium that seats
14,000.
14,000 roughly
14,000.
at full capacity. Now, I know Oakland has only been getting 4,000 fans a game at best, so 14,000 should be plenty. But I think their whole point of moving to another location is because they're hoping that maybe more than 4,000 are going to come.
But this is my
It
question,
just
Josh.
sounds, it's just so wild that you're going to have a pro team playing at basically like this minor league-esque facility
But
for
how do you
3 years.
how do you get guys to come play for you? Like I'm serious. Like I know that you could say, well, we're going to be in, but how do you have guys to come play for you? If you've been
I
playing in,
wouldn't
let's
want to
say,
go
New
and play over
York
there.
or
Yeah,
even in Cincinnati or Cleveland, like why would you want to go play in Sacramento? You know, and
not me.
again, I don't want to like I know the fans have been boycotting, but like, dude, Oakland fans deserve better. Now I know it's Oakland, California, and it's its own world, but they
Yeah.
deserve better, man. Like the way that this owner has treated this club and has just basically ridden it down. Like if you've ever been to the stadium, I've heard the stadium is just it's awful, it's terrible, and it's just like at that point, like what do you do? You know, and that's definitely been frustrating. The fact that it's in Sacramento, like I saw someone say, I don't know if did you ever play backyard baseball when you were a kid on the computer? But
Yeah.
my cousin shared this. He shared this photo. And do you remember the stadium that is in backyard? I don't know if the screen will pick it up. Do you remember this stadium? I don't know if
Yep.
it's very glary. So I don't
Yep.
know
That
if
was
the
about the
camera.
most pro-esque stadium you
Yeah.
could play at in that
And it
game.
said like and the new stadium for the Oakland A's. And I was like, that is it honestly not wrong. Pretty much that's what it's gonna
Yeah.
be like.
The Oakland fans, so I just checked. Sacramento's 2.5 hours away. I don't know how many are going to actually travel to go and support the
No,
team.
like
So you're going to have to, in 3 years, somehow develop a new kind of fan base to come and
you know what's gonna
watch your
happen? You
games.
watch. Someone's going to break through with the Las Vegas one, and Oakland won't have them back. And they're going to have to build a stadium in Sacramento. You just watch. This is what's going to happen. It's just going to
Are
be
they
a
still going to
nightmare,
be
man.
called the Oakland A's in this time, or
I
will they
don't
be the
know.
Sacramento
So,
A's?
so for all of you that want to go watch the A's one last time in Oakland, like this is your chance. This is the last year. So go
And
do
that
it
probably
if
won't
you
even
can.
drive the prices up anyway whatsoever either.
No, it's so sad. It's sad for baseball, and it's just like the Mets are sad for baseball. How do you have the biggest payroll and yet you're 0-5?
Haven't won a game yet. Yeah, that's
It is
crazy.
sad, man. It is sad.
I've never looked into this myself. I'm going to check what Oakland Athletics tickets cost
Oh, I'm
because
sure it's like $10.
it is still in California and things are ridiculously priced over there and stuff. So let's see. Um, Let me find a home series because they're on the road for the next couple, it looks like. Okay, here we go. Washington Nationals at Oakland Athletics for a Friday night. You can
Which is usually
get,
expensive ticket. Like Cleveland and Cincinnati, that's an expensive ticket.
yeah. Let's check to see what behind home plate costs first, because that's usually where the most
I'm gonna
expensive seats
guess.
are.
I'm gonna go 420.
You're gonna have to go way less than that.
Are you serious?
Like way less, like two digits.
It's like what, $90?
You can get seats behind home plate for $65, Ben, not including fees.
Josh, if I was in America right now, we would be buying plane tickets to go to Oakland and I would sit behind dude, sitting behind home plate for a game.
I'm
I don't care
checking
who
all
it
around too
is.
to make sure it's not just the one-off section, that everything behind home plate's in the $60 range.
But like Josh, you know what I'm saying? Like it doesn't matter who the team is. Like that's an experience that no one ever gets to have the chance. Like it's Cincinnati, I'm sure it's like $1,000 at least.
Now I'm
Like
gonna see if I can adjust the dollar sign here to see what the most expensive seat in this stadium is, because maybe it's not behind home plate, but I would assume it is.
that is bizarre, man. That is bizarre.
Okay, you can get some kind of like club deal or whatever the heck for 280 something bucks. You know how like at some stadiums you actually can seat like not just in a seat behind home plate, but you're like almost
Yeah,
in the
yeah, yeah,
dugout
yeah,
kind of
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
Yeah, those are $266.
Still, that's nothing, man. That honestly.
But still after that, like the yeah, this is crazy. I'd be behind home plate for 60 bucks
Dude,
all
it
the
be
time, dude.
listen, it would literally cost more to buy the food at the game than it would be for your ticket.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That is nuts.
So
But even speaking of that, like other things that have caught your eye, Josh, over the first week. For me, it is Mookie Betts turning into superhuman, and all of a sudden just deciding never to stop hitting. Like he
gotta start with
literally
Mookie Betts.
he either walks or he gets a hit. Like that's pretty much what he's doing.
Leading all of baseball in batting average at 485, home runs with 5, runs batted in with 11, hits with 16,
On base percentage, I
and he's
believe
doing it
too.
while playing shortstop, a new position too.
Dude, this guy, but he played second base last year. Dude, that he's phenomenal, man. And the fact that the Boston Red Sox let him go is just mind blowing to me.
Didn't want to pay and pretended to be poor. It's like, geez, man.
And you let the best and dude, that thing is about the Dodgers. If you look at that lineup, it's just like not fair. Like I just look at that lineup and I'm like, it's
No,
just not fair. It's not fair, man.
especially one guy that we haven't talked about. We've talked about like the top three guys like that are top 10 players in the league with Freddie and Mookie and Otani, but Will Smith,
Dude, Will
man,
Smith is a
I
freaking
don't want
animal, dude.
I don't want that to go unnoticed. Hitting 406 right now still with 7 RBIs. Both of those ranked top 20 in the league.
It is
Mashing it.
crazy,
They just
man.
extended him, I think, to a nice
Yeah, they did.
contract
They
too.
did. Yeah, yeah.
So he's not going anywhere for a while. Big time man behind the plate there.
Yeah,
Um,
there's a
let's find some pitchers that have been like absolutely dealing too to highlight.
Yamamoto has not done great. I mean, he had a
Yamamoto
good,
has
yeah,
not been that guy yet, but Tyler Glass now has been
yes.
one of their other signings. Yeah, so he's 2-0 with a
Well, you
3.18
talked
ERA
about
right now and
Bieber,
5 Ks,
I
15
talked about
Ks.
Montes for the Reds.
Yeah.
Like, there's a couple guys that are playing really well.
You so Bieber does lead the league in Ks with 20. Right behind him is you Darvish with 16.
Oh, you Darvish still around.
You doesn't have a win yet though. He's 0-1 in his starts with a 2.30 ERA and 16 Ks.
We can also talk about how
San
bad
Diego problems.
we can also talk about how bad the Marlins are. The Marlins are
Yes, along with
absolutely
the Mets, the Marlins are the only team that hasn't gotten a win yet.
they're so bad, dude. I've watched them. They
Negative
went from being
27 run
like
differential.
they went literally from being a playoff wild card team, out beating the Reds, barely beat the Reds for that wild card. Now to they might not win a game for another couple days.
Yeah, makes you wonder. And they even got Jazz Chisholm back. That was going to be another boost for him this year. And credit to Jazz. Well, not so much credit to Jazz. He's hitting 130, never mind. He's not even getting really off to a good start himself.
Yeah, it's man, I how do you feel about baseball season though? Isn't it just fun, man? I just love this time of year.
It is. And it's fun to get hyped up about some of these teams just a couple series in. One other guy that I'm going to be keeping an eye on. It hasn't translated to the regular season yet, but O'Neal Cruz, I think, led spring training in home
I
runs and
know
just
you
was hitting
posted enough about O'Neal
straight nukes.
Cruz.
Oh, I'd post it all the time, dude. It's like, oh, look, O'Neal Cruz goes 440 feet again. I
I
can't.
mean, even like speaking of Cruz, like Ellie De La Cruz for the Reds, like I don't know if you've noticed, he's like completely changed his batting stance a little bit. So he's like not as like big looping open swing. So like he's definitely not. I mean, his average isn't showing it, but his context. He's bunting now. He had two infield bunt singles, by the way, and it feels like he gets there in two strides, man. He
He's more than
bunt
fast enough.
he bunted it from the right side and outbeat a throw that it was a terrible bunt. Actually, it wasn't a great bunt at all, but he still beat the throw. Like it's just, dude, I'm telling you, he's basically a faster version of O'Neal Cruz and a switch hitter.
Yeah, they're both 6'7" shortstops with
Yes,
kind of the same last name that can hit bombs, run fast, and throw 100 miles an hour to first base.
and then you have the guy from the Cardinals, Cole Winn, who throws like 104 across the infield, which is a nightmare to catch. By the way, I was a first baseman. Dude, the worst thing is when you have a shortstop who has a can of an arm, because if it blends in with anything behind you, you're kind of screwed. We used to have
Mm.
practice in the, I'll explain this story. We used to have practice in the gym, right? And you know how most gyms in high school have white walls? So imagine shortstops throwing it 85 miles an hour across the gym floor, and it's with a white wall. All I see is these very tint red
Mm.
markings.
Yeah.
Oh, it was so terrifying. That was like the scariest time when we were doing infield drills
That's when
in the
you were
gym.
like, hey, coach, can we use like the dirty balls that got mud all over them
Dude, I told him,
so I
I
can
said,
actually
can we
see?
paint it? Can we just use softballs? Because I can at least see those. I can't see what's coming at me. Oh,
Man.
the amount of times I got hit in the chest or like the jaw because of the ball ricocheting. It's oh. Anyways. But yeah, that's baseball, man. I think
Yeah, we could go
baseball,
on and on
yeah.
about the league,
Which we
but
will.
yeah,
Which
we
we
got
will.
one more
Yes.
big story to discuss today, and that would
Mhm.
be moves
Texans
that the
getting
Houston
better.
Texans made.
And Texans getting better.
Houston Texans got better. They went out and made a trade for Stephon Diggs to give CJ Stroud a bona fide weapon, clear number one wide receiver to throw to. And they didn't really have to give up a whole lot for it. I think it was a
Second
just
round
a
pick.
some
Next year, yeah, next
second
year,
round
second
pick,
round
right?
pick. Yeah.
Yeah. Which I'd give a second round
Now
pick
they
away for
did
Stephon
void.
Diggs.
I just read literally just read they did void his 3 years remaining, so he's only gonna be contracted for this year, and he'll be a free agent after this year. So I don't know if that was part of the
Okay.
deal that in order to get it done, like Stefan only wanted a 1 year. He wanted to be able to choose where he goes next. Which if you're the Houston
Yeah.
Texans, that means you're all in now. You have to go all in to try to get a couple wins.
Apparently they are, yeah, which who would have thought the Houston Texans 2 years removed from being the worst team in the league is going to be like going all in like this.
It's
It
mind
doesn't
boggling.
usually happen, but they've made plenty of great moves to get them to this point. Diggs, to me, it's always been a rumor of are they going to trade him out of Buffalo because you'll see him and Josh Allen like going at it, or you'll see him like unfollow the Bills on social media, or not come to OTAs, or like just the
Yeah.
typical dumb stuff that like isn't really worth reading into too much. But now he's out of the team, Ben. This is obviously what do you think this does for Houston? You kind of alluded to it seems like they are going like all in win now mode right now.
Yeah. I think this is all in. I think you you can't make a move like this if if your goal is to just be like another 10-6 10-7 year or 11 and even 11-6 year. I I think it's really hard for me to think that you're trying just to go for divisional round. To me, if you make a move like this, yeah, you didn't give up a lot, but with you voiding 3 years of his contract, you're saying, hey, we trust the process that we're in right now, that we're in the best chance to win. Now, I disagree with that. I think you really shouldn't have sacrificed those 3 years, because what happens if you have a down year and you go 7-10? Now you have to convince him, hey, still stick with our building process. So for me, that was a little weird. Like, because when I read that just as we're recording, like I was like, what? This is just weird. So again, I haven't read all the way in it, but it's just a little weird to me. But yeah, I think they're all in, man. I think I wouldn't be shocked if they pull off some of those draft day trades and they try to do something tricky. But dude, CJ Stroud has to be sitting at home like with his hands back, going, I might be the first Ohio State quarterback to actually be successful in the playoffs. So he's looking at Justin Fields like, hey, bud, how you doing? And that sort of thing.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think Houston might have seen CJ perform last year at an MVP caliber level and realize we got one of the top 10, dare I say top 5 quarterbacks in the league on a rookie contract right now. We got to spend all the money we can elsewhere to put a good team around him to be able to go ahead and like compete and win while we got him on this cheap deal
Oh
because pretty
yeah.
soon we're gonna have to pay him 60 million a year. Or it might even be 65, 70 million a year by the time that
Yeah.
his contract rolls around the way these quarterback contracts go. And then it's gonna be like, well, how are we gonna pay everybody else? But that's what this move seems like. And then on the Buffalo side, I don't really know what their plan is.
It-
We knew that going into the offseason, the defense was basically all
yeah.
free agents. They
Yeah.
didn't really seem like they were going to sign Gabe
And
Davis
we kept
again.
saying, they were going to just get a DB in the draft. Like that's what we both have been saying. They'll get someone like
Yeah,
that, whoever's
we're
there.
like, well, we'll see what they like sign, I guess. But yeah, now they have a clear need at wide receiver with both starters gone. So
But my
I
question to
don't know what
you,
Josh Allen's wondering.
yeah, and that's what I was about to say. Like I know I
Like,
posed
what are
to
you
you,
guys doing, man?
yeah, I posed to you before we started recording. Like if you're Josh Allen, like why do you want to stay? Like they're paying you to be the starting quarterback, but yet they're taking away everything you need in order to succeed.
Yeah.
Right? It's like being a plumber and them taking away all your tools. Like what are you supposed
Yeah.
to do at that point?
It's very interesting. It's I don't know if this is I don't know if you would call it a rebuild, but I think Buffalo might have topped out what they're truly capable of. It just seems like every
Yeah.
year they run into the Chiefs again, and it's not good enough, or they're not good enough. Like just, a little few pieces away, and they're like, well, if this is as good as this team's gonna get, maybe we just blow it up and restart again. We still hold on to Josh, who can like at least be a good enough player to compete for the playoffs with whatever roster he has.
Yeah.
And then we'll slowly get him like, a new team and maybe build a new identity. I don't know. I guess time's gonna tell on that. But yeah, this Diggs trade did shock me. Everything about it. Buffalo trading him to begin with,
And also
to
getting
the
only a second
Texans.
round pick.
And yeah, only the second round and then the 3 years voided. Like there was a lot of like, no way. What? And then
Yeah.
that's crazy.
And also how bad the AFC East is going to be this year.
You think?
I mean, I think the Patriots are going to be bad. Jets are iffy because
It
how
all
good
depends
it,
on Aaron
how
Rodgers.
good is Aaron Rodgers going to be? Because if he's not anywhere close to where
How
he
good will
should
he be and
be,
how healthy will he be?
yeah, it's a
And then
tough one.
Miami, you can count on them to go 11-6 or 12-5 in the regular season when it's warm in Miami. And then when they got to play a road playoff game
Yeah,
in a cold weather environment, they're going to fold.
that is true. That is true.
Yeah.
But this will change. Like obviously, we'll have another mock draft coming out before the draft, like the last one, and
Yeah.
obviously this
I
will
might
change
be
everything.
mocking a wide receiver over there.
Exactly. Same. So there's a lot of things that are changing, and a lot of these things change. But outside of that, I don't think there's really any other crazy news um, in the NFL. Really, I think it's pretty. That was pretty the
Yeah.
biggest
I mean,
news.
it's been small stuff like Kyle Van Noy came back to Baltimore. I don't know if you want to touch really quickly on Ohio State does have a running back coach
Yes.
now.
Yeah. Yeah. So
We
we
haven't
can
gotten to
touch
talk
on.
about
Yeah,
that yet.
we can
So
talk
we'll end
about
the
it.
show there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll end the show on the college football. I gotta remember his name. I can never say his name.
I don't remember his name. I just know
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
he's from Oregon, and they've had a couple good running backs come through, like C.J. Verdell
Yes.
and Bucky Irving
I will
coming
share
through.
this. I will share this. So his story is very unique. I will find his name here. Yeah, his name is Carlos Lachlan. So fun story. He actually was a correctional officer in Memphis, Tennessee. So if any of you've been to the United States, if you're not from the United States, or if you've never been to Tennessee, Memphis, Tennessee is a,
Memphis
let's
is
just say
tough.
it's going to get you to become a tough man, right? And Carlos Lachlan was a correctional officer. I mean, if you look at him, he's jacked, like he's a big human, um, and he basically volunteered at the University of Memphis after he would work his shift hours. He would volunteer, and he would try to get his name in there. And then obviously he grew up and he kind of went up the ranks. I believe he worked at Florida State for a year, and then he obviously went to Oregon as a running backs coach. He was a running back for Chattanooga back in the day, and was actually a pretty good running back. But the craziest part about him is that he has this thing about him being basically like no BS kind of guy. He's a pretty much like an old school type of coach. He had said something about like I don't make soft batch cookies or something like that. Like or something I can't. You have to go look it up online. It is hilarious. Like his whole thing about like I don't make like soft batch cookies. Like if you want to be a soft batch cookie, then you're not going to play for me. You can go to the transfer portal basically. Um, I think Josh, I think you can agree with me. Like that's what Ohio State needed. They needed a guy to come in here that is going to take the room, which by the way is very talented, and say, this is how we're going to run the game. This is how we're going to play. This is how we're going to be as running backs. And he came out and said after his first practice, like this is a very talented room. And the fact that Ryan Day supposedly, this is the rumors, not for fact, but he had Carlos Loughlin, I guess, locked up like 2 weeks ago. Everyone was freaking out, like, oh, he can't find anybody. Everyone's turning him down. No, no, no. He's had him down, but the deal was that if he waited until after Monday, his buyout went down by like 400,000. So basically, it was like Ohio State saving money, but also he had been basically telling Oregon, I'm leaving to go to Ohio State. So the weirdest part about the whole thing, I guess, is the fact that it's Oregon losing a coordinator to Ohio State the same way UCLA lost their head coach to Ohio State, which is the same way Ohio State lost their running backs coach to Michigan. The Big Ten is just swapping coaches at this point, and it's a very fascinating thing.
Yeah. I think it'll work out. Like I said, he's had some good running backs come through, and it seemed to be guys that weren't necessarily highly touted recruits that maybe came through more of a developmental route. But that's a heck of a story too. Just starting off like getting your foot in the door, like volunteering.
And he, and
I'll
he was
be
a
a
he was a
grinder, man.
volunteer. He was a volunteer strength coach, like in the weight room. Like he wasn't even
Yeah.
like a coach, which is kind of cool.
Like when people ask like Zach Smith or like other football coaches, like how do you become a coach or like what's your like path to getting into coaching? And that's like literally what he always lays out is like you got to be a grinder. You got to be
Yeah.
willing to work for free. Like get a foot in the door, start off at the high school level usually. And that's how it kind of goes. Yeah, you got to be willing to work for free and volunteer like that. And now look at him coaching Quinshon Judkins and Travion Henderson
And
this coming
it
season.
and it's so cool to see. And by the way, can we just say that Ryan Day has finally, I think, decided that he's done with this crap that he has to deal with from the media and stuff. Like Ryan Day is putting together a fantastic offseason. Like absolutely doing everything he can to put this team in the winning victory idea.
Mm-hmm.
It's awesome to
Yeah.
see. But anyways, that is the show for today, for this week. Again, make sure in the comments, make sure you say happy birthday to good old Josh. He's an old man now. He's becoming old, and not that I'm much younger. I'm literally a year younger than him. But anyways, we hope you guys enjoyed this show. If you have enjoyed on YouTube, go ahead and click that thumbs up button, hit the subscribe button, hit that notification bell. That'll allow us to see that you're enjoying the show. And if you listen on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, share the link with your friends and family. As I share it, you can always share it on your story as well. And as always, until next time, we'll see ya.